Invited Joanne to share with us some of her experience tonight. She's a leadership coach. She's an expert in the soft part of the business management and of human development. And she has been personally involved and supporting in their leadership development some of key executives in the Silicon Valley. I really appreciate that you are here, Joanne, with us. And I'm sure during your lecture you'll share some of other interesting facts of yourself. Anyway, it was published in our communication, so these people know why they are here tonight. Yeah. So the mic is yours.
All right, all right. Thank you, Sasha. Give it up for Sasha. So hi, here's how I typically introduce myself. I'm Bond, Joanne Bond. And if they need an old Bond girl, I'm her. The old one, you know, because they're all kind of young, like you guys. So I want to know a little bit about you before I talk. So first of all, I want to know, tell me a little bit about what you want to know. So that would really help me answer something specifically, if there's something on your mind. And then if you want to just give me, shout out a couple comments you have about maybe the business that you have or what you're trying to do or something that would give me a little bit of context, if that would be fine. For example, I met, tell me your name again? Michaela. And she shares my background. We both are speech language pathologists by training, and she's a life coach and I'm a coach as well. So that's kind of cool. So now I know a little bit about her. So tell me, any preconceived notions about what you'd like me to talk about? Anything about your business you could share that would help me understand the context? Shaking your head. Oh, that's right. This means the opposite. Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, okay. I'm going to try not to use my head. Anyway, tell me a few things. Just shout it out. Business? Kind of business you have? Yeah? My name is... There you go.
Hello guys, my name is Jordan and I'm software engineer. So in my career I'm at this point that I'm getting in position of lead and to lead a small team, maybe later bigger. So I'm here because I want to hear and to see maybe a little bit international experience of leadership and international point of view of leadership.
Great.
So,
okay. You can talk about that. All right. Pass it to somebody else.
Maybe what motivates the people.
What motivates the people?
Yes.
Like the teams?
Yes, the teams.
Okay. Nobody? You're not going to give me more context? Please, just a little bit. Yes, thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Dian. I'm a product manager. So, in other words, I am in the IT industry, kind of. I lead a team of about 10 people across different countries. So, I want to know two things. One is, first of all, how can I help my team to become their next best selves? This is one very interesting topic. And the second is a bit more selfish. How how do I create a good personal brand? Where do I start? Any good tips and tricks? Obviously, you are there already, so you should have some tips and tricks.
I should, theoretically, right? Yeah, that's good. Yeah, good. Yes, of course. Thank you. Oh.
Yeah. Hello, John.
Hello.
My name
Long
is,
time no see.
Yeah. It was a long time. And my name is Nikolai, and I'm leading a program called Table Mentor, educational program for students, and I'm leading a team of around 30 people, volunteers. With them, I'm organizing the whole program here in Sofia, and I must say that it's a bit difficult to lead such a team of volunteers, because they're engaged with their full-time work. And for me, the question I'd like to answer from you, probably, and is what's the type of leadership probably suits fine in my role? I mean, should I be more how to engage actually those people, because they really don't have enough time to work on all the priorities we have. So this is something really it's really interesting for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can
you don't see me. So I'm Amelia, and I'm the operational director of MoveBG, where we are here. And maybe if we can talk, or you can talk a bit about holacracy, and if this is actually a myth, or how does it work? Because, I mean, leadership is one thing, but actually empowering people to be leaders, especially when you're surrounded by young people who all of them want and need to take the initiative, is, I think, is a bit different from the more old school traditional model of hierarchical leadership. So maybe if you have some insights about that.
So tell me your definition of holacracy.
Where basically there is not like a central body where all of the decisions should be taken from, or I don't know, have a final approval, but basically the people are having their own responsibility and they're acting as leaders in their defined roles. And maybe the leader, until some extent, has this quality assurance type of characteristic at the end, but rather gives the leadership to each one of them.
Okay, wow. Whew, how much time we got again? This is all right, thank you. So I'm gonna just start addressing some of this. Is that okay? Is that okay? Wait, no? You? This is. So I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to start with the bigger picture. Do you guys want to come in? There's places. You're good? All right. So the high level, the highest level, yet the most integral level is what you named number 2, which I think is number 1. And that is you as a leader. Whether you're functioning independently, whether you're in charge of your business, whether you're running the team, whether the deal is, the first thing is, what is leadership for you? So leadership is more than a title. Leadership, to me, the best definition is more around being someone who can identify problems, look for solutions, and describe without blame things that need to happen. And with that definition, anybody can be a leader, including your teenager. Anybody, right? So from the standpoint of leadership, when I coach people, the first thing I have them do is write a vision statement for how they want to show up. So I have them answer the question, my vision for myself as a leader is ... And it's not a to-do list, like to go get more training, or a vision statement can be things like to cultivate development of my staff. Could be to be visionary and successful at implementing things that are realistic. So it's what you hold as the vision for yourself. So I would give that to all of you as homework right off the bat, especially if you've made a level change, like now you've got team to manage or whatever the case may be, right? Volunteers to manage. I would start with you. How do you want to show up? And that can be, the first time I answered that question for myself, it took me 8 months. So I mean, it can be a deep question. These days, the revision takes about 10 minutes because I'm still, once you kind of identify it, you're pretty stable. So when you ask yourself, how do I want to show up? What comes next typically is how do I authentically be myself so that I feel like who I am is who you see, and it's who I'm pleased with being. So to me, that regardless of where you sit in an organization, it's about how you want to show up. And if you think about it from the standpoint of my desired state is this, but I'm currently right here, then what do I need to do to bridge the gap between my current status and my aspirational status? So really, that's your work, and that's big work. Now, if you take it to a group of volunteers, or you take it to a team, or you take it to a team that's more collaborative in nature, it's still important for everybody to share this vision, to really understand my intent is to show up like this. So you may have a vision now that you're running a team is to assure that you hear everybody's opinion, that the team, so the second layer for you may be, what's my vision for the team and how I want them to be? Yours might be, what's my vision for the volunteers? How do I want them to be? Even if it's a global group and you're doing virtual, it's like the next thing would be, and here's my vision for the team. And I think sharing, if you read in the leadership literature, they will talk often about successful leaders share their vision. So you share your vision, and you're also open to modifying it based on what people are giving back to you. So if you say, here's my vision for myself, that I will be accessible to people, and now my team vision is that the team will work collaboratively under guidance, or the team will assure that they vet all opinions and consider the best options, or that the team will play in the sandbox nicely together. There might be something. So you want to get clear about what you are going to show up like and how you would like them to show up. And then I would share it and say, what do you think? Is that something that's doable? Can we work on that together? So that's kind of the taking it sort of inside out. I would probably say it. Start with you and work out. So an inside out job. And then I think when you get from, leadership presence is a lot of work. I can tell you just a little story. I just got done coaching an executive director of a nonprofit who provides family and child care services. So they run a school, and they also do small lending for families so they can get a car, for example. And they do different kinds of activities. And she had been in her position about 6 months when she hired me to coach her. And we coached along for about 4 months, and she says, well, what do you think? How am I doing? And I said, well, I think that you got the title, that you're a leader, but I don't think you're owning it. So when people throw around terms like women empowerment or empowerment of the worker, that kind of thing, to me it's about owning it. So if you are now the team leader, you got to own it. It's your responsibility to show up in that capacity. If you're the guy who is coordinating all the volunteers, it's your role to show up in that capacity. And then some of that translates into management skills. So it doesn't all stay up in the air. Some of it is, I have to learn how to delegate better. I have to prioritize so people know what my top 3 priorities are so that they can follow them. I have to coach other people in their development. So it's a kind of a big picture down to all the way to management skills potentially. So as you are in that process, it's paying attention to yourself. Like, what do I know about myself, and what are my gaps, and how do I fill my gaps? Because only you will know. I mean, as a coach, I'll ask you about them. Like, so this vision that you wrote, is that doable? Well, well then let's make it more doable, right? Let's make it more real. So that's kind of how I would approach it. That's like the big picture to the smaller picture. Does that help? Some of the comments that have come up so far? Yeah? Of what? Yes? Cool. So I think I have like a billion things to say at once. So I know I got to fit my top 3. I want to talk about a couple things. One is I want to tell you about the importance of resiliency. That's one thing I want to talk about. And the other thing I want to talk about is, wait, don't tell me. What's the other thing I want to talk about? Shoot, I just had it. Oh, emotional intelligence. You're shaking your head. You've heard the term. Yeah. Has everybody heard the term emotional intelligence? So just to level the playing field, it's the ability, it's the emotional intelligence is the understanding of yourself, self-knowledge, self-management, relationship knowledge and relationship management, especially under stress. Because under stress, all bets are off, right? So you are successful professionals, successful human beings. You wouldn't be sitting here if you weren't. So your job is to know what you're good at so you can continue to do it. Like, oh, I'm good at that. I should probably keep doing that, right? It's like a funnel. I think who used the funnel? You used the funnel earlier? Somebody did. It's the funnel. So you got to know 80% of the time, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty strong. I'm pretty right on. It's the 10 to 20% that I'm right? It could be topics. It could be relationships. It's what triggers you that you want to know that knocks you off your game to the 10 to 20%. So emotional intelligence is housed in self-awareness. So if you have self-awareness about what triggers you, you're in a much better place to manage that. And that's what you're shooting for. So as a coach, I'll tell you, I put everybody into heightened states of self-awareness because you can't do anything without it. So the trajectory looks like awareness to insight to choice to action to new habits. So, you know, it's like development is so not sexy. It's just behavior. It's just behavior. Like, how do you want to be a better behaved individual and more effective, right? So you have to have the self-awareness to say, now that I have that, I'm much easier for me to manage. Now I get the power seat of choice. So if I know that what triggers me is you coming to talk to me at 4 o'clock in the afternoon about that you want to rearrange my office and paint it blue, and that sets me off. Oh, she's going to talk about painting my office blue again. I hate that. That sets me off. I should probably be eating almonds and not talking to you at that moment. But I can say to myself, historically, when that happens, I would have just hid under my desk. Or you know, here comes Joanne down the hall. She's going to talk to me about painting my office blue again. And I could go, you know, I'm on the phone because I'm avoiding, right? It's because we're all big fat avoiders generally. In case you didn't know that, we're all big fat avoiders. But when you're in a power seat of choice, you can go, well, what else can I try? And what else can I try? And what's something new I can try? Because that gives you more effective action. And when you're really rewiring the brain to make you more effective, you have to disrupt it. It's like the way you drive to work is you take this street, or you take this street, you stop at this coffee shop, you get your to-go cup of something, and then you get to work and you get your favorite parking space, and you're into work on time. One day, you go do the same thing and your street's under construction for the next month. You have been disrupted. Now you have to find a new route. And the way the brain works is it says, okay, find a new route. So you find a new route, you have to go to this other coffee shop on this other street, and now you're going to potentially lose your favorite parking spot. And this is, so what happens is the more you do the new behavior, the more that becomes a routine, patterned part of your neuroscience, right? So when you're trying to be a more effective anything, that's what you're always working against, is this idea that you have to rewire your brain. So you've just rewired your brain, and now that habit becomes your new habit, and the loop continues. So now there's something else you'll have to be self-aware about. So emotional intelligence, to me, is really key for you, whether you have your own business, you work in an organization, whatever you're doing, it's this idea, if you want to be more effective, you're going to have to sit in that space of awareness so you can manage it. And then for most of us, you know that the only way you get things done these days is through your relationships. At work, I mean, if you could sit at work and do it yourself, you would have done that. You would have figured that out. But it doesn't work like that, right? Damn, it doesn't work like that. So what you're doing then is figuring out, how do I improve my relationships? So back to the team and the volunteer and et cetera, is that it's all relationship activity. It's all, how do I listen to people and figure out what they want to do and pair them up? And so the research will say people do better when they get to practice their strengths. So if you have me trying to speak Bulgarian to you here, I would be completely bummed out. That would just not, right? It would be so hard for me, and I wouldn't be practicing my strength. And that's, I think, what you have to pay attention to when you have people that you're looking at, how do we work together more effectively? So that's the emotional intelligence piece. The container for emotional intelligence is well-being. So for you to do the work of being self-aware and self-manage and figure out what's the best way for this team to make decisions, for example, you've got to take care, you have to have energy, you have to have bandwidth for that. So if you find yourself just depleted and not able to really stay in that space of trying to do what's best, then maybe you got to go work on your energy management. You know, and I say there's five golden things to think about: hydration, nutrition, sleep, stress management, and exercise. Thank you. I just told her, yeah. So if you don't know where to start, go there. From an emotional intelligence research standpoint, what they found about the role of well-being, so there are certain emotional intelligence factors that influence happiness, and some that happiness influences emotional intelligence. And believe it or not, we are now interested that people at work are happy. I don't know about you guys, this is kind of new news in general. We used to be like, it's not my problem if you're happy at work or not, right? So Sean Aker did some work, The Happiness Advantage. His research is out. He's got a funny TED Talk too, by the way. And that talks about happy people are more productive. Whereas before we used to think if you're more productive, you're going to be happy. So it's flipped, right? So we do care now if you're happy or not in the work environment. So in emotional intelligence, there are 4 things that talk about being the driver of well-being. And that's interpersonal relationships, optimism, self-regard, and self-actualization. So interpersonal relationships, optimism, self-regard, and self-actualization. So you know what interpersonal relationships are, right? Optimism is really a resiliency tool. It's believing that this too shall pass, that we'll make it through this, right? Self-regard is confidence. Confidence is huge. When people have new positions, they often go through a drop in their confidence. And what's interesting about it that I like to help sort out with people is you wouldn't have gotten the new position if somebody didn't believe that you were capable. So you don't have to take your whole self-confidence down into the rabbit hole. You can say, I just don't know how to do this new job yet. And keep your self-confidence intact. It's a big one. If any of you are coaching, mentoring, or developing somebody else, you got to keep their self-confidence up so you can get the upward spiral, because the reality is if you decide to grow and change and get better, you're going to fail. It's a failure exercise. I don't know if anybody told you that before. But getting better at something means you're going to fail along the way. Now, if you've seen any of Brene Brown's work on vulnerability, she talks about, you know, you do things, you fail, you have to get up, keep going, fail. I mean, that's just kind of life. And we learn a lot from our failures. But even though they're hard to get through, but I can't buy that kind of learning. And then the fourth one, self-actualization, is this living your life on purpose. That how you're living syncs up with what you value. Where I see people leave positions, for example, is that their values don't mesh with the organization that they're in. Where they leave relationships is their values don't mesh. And there are predictable times in your life when your values may shift. Quarter life crisis, 25 to 35, heard that term? Yeah? Anybody here in quarter life crisis? Yeah? You don't have to tell us. And then there's midlife crisis that we're all very well schooled in. But there's other times, like when you were single and you got married, or when you had your first kid, and now you went from not being so achievement oriented to now being family oriented, or intimacy in your relationships oriented, or when you're when you are a successful tech person who cashed out at the age of 30 and they're instant millionaires, they kind of shift into, well, now what? What do I do with that money? Maybe I want to be socially conscious and I want to get into give back or contribution. So there are times in your life where your values will shift. And when they do, it typically means it can be a simple mini transition to something that fits a little bit better, like a new relationship or a new job or a new car, I don't know, whatever floats your boat. You know, it's this idea that you're going to try whatever it is to get your mojo back, to get your energy back. But there are certain times when it requires a deeper dive because your identity has changed. And that can happen, and you'll kind of know when that's happening when you try all the mini transitions and it's not doing the job. So a guy I coached who was in a bank, he was a VP in a bank, and he worked in the back house. So he did financial analysis. He did back house work. And he and I coached, and he said, you know, I like the company, I like my work, but it's not quite it. So he went to the front of the house, which means that he was selling banking products. So he got his energy back around that. A couple months later, he calls me, he goes, that's not the whole thing. He goes, that achievement drive to be good at work is not the whole thing. And what he found is his values has shifted. So he did a deeper dive. He goes, I'm not into personal mastery like I was. Now I want to give back. So what he does now is he sits on the board of a youth arts council. And now he feels like he's created that next life chapter. So it's paying attention to that helps kind of navigate your pathway around where you want to be or who you want to be. So that's like my soapbox platforms. That's what I talk to people about. I also am certified in emotional intelligence assessment, so I use that as a tool often with people. So, am I answering questions? What do you got? What else you want to know? Yeah. Can you pass a mic over to them, please? Oh, thank you.
Does it work? Yeah. Can you tell us what's the process that you use in order to self-monitor, maybe not to self-assess because you need a coach or something,
right.
But how often do you do it? How you do it? What are the tools? What are the instruments in order to follow these progress? Because sometimes you feel irritated and you don't realize that actually maybe something has changed in your life, like your basic values, and you figure it out through quarreling with your family from sometimes. So it's like you figure yourself out. So how can we avoid this and just be proactive in monitoring yourself?
Oh, this is a really great question. So here's a tool I like to teach. It's called Climate Check. So here's what you do. You, like right now, here's how you do the climate check. Okay, right now, say to yourself, what is the emotion that you are experiencing? It's about 10 seconds. If you're still trying to figure it out, then you need to work on that. And my advice is go to the internet and download 100 words that are emotion adjectives. And every day, 5 times a day, do a climate check. You're going into a meeting, climate check. You come out of a meeting, climate check. You're just about to go in the house at night after working all day, climate check. You wake up in the morning, climate check. I swear to God, you got to. So for those of you who already know, you want to broaden and deepen your emotion vocabulary. And then the bonus question is, why do I feel that way? Right? So if you're aggravated, well, why am I aggravated? Well, because, my family. Right? Now your brain has something to work on. So what happens, the neuroscience 101 on this is that when we get, the whole fight or flight response that we get, the lion is chasing us kind of thing. Well, the brain doesn't distinguish around what your stress is caused from. It just knows that you're having a response. So in the midbrain, there's a little space there called the amygdala. And the amygdala is firing before your prefrontal cortex, which is executive functioning and problem solving, can even make sense of it. So what you're trying to do is grab hold of this. So when you walk into a room, you walk into a meeting, and you're like, uh-oh. And you don't even know why, right? Yeah, that's happened, right? We call it picking up the vibe or whatever. Or you go to a party, and you walk in the room, and you're like, oh, this is going to be a good party. And you don't even know why either, right? So if you can name the emotion, because the prefrontal cortex is language-based, language and cognition are linked, and you say, oh, I'm aggravated, your prefrontal cortex can go, oh, aggravated? I know how to solve that problem. So you have now just unhooked that automatic response. If you find yourself even more hooked in and need more stress management, there's a couple other things I would do. If you're standing, sit. If you're sitting, stand, if you can. So somebody said something to you and you just got triggered. If you can't, just tap your finger on your thigh. What you're trying to do is to break up the somatic response, this automatic response you have to that trigger, right? So break that up and buy yourself 10 seconds to get back in your body. Or then you can say something like, let's say, what's your name? Sophia. So let's say Sophia said something to me about painting my office blue again. God, I wish you couldn't bring that. So she says this to me and I get hooked and I go, so first of all, you have to exhale, because usually when you're under stress, you go, right? So, and then I start tapping and I go, well, that's interesting. So what is it? So let me see if I understand what you said. So you want to paint my office blue this Friday. So I just bought myself 20 seconds. So that's what I would do. That's the climate checking. That's the tool. Just expand your self-awareness. It's a great tool. Yeah. Does that help? Cool. Other comments, questions?
Hi. So it's
Hi.
long time no see. So I was wondering, when you have a team and you're building a team, how do you work with the emotional intelligence of the team, not by the individuals, by the team?
So emotionally intelligent teams that have teams that have emotionally intelligent managers are much happier, first of all. So work on yourself. Again, I'm back to start with you. It starts with you. Do your work. One of the things to keep in mind is that when the needs of the individual are met in the team functions much better. So when you think about the teams that you're on, if you know each other really well and you can talk about that with each other, like if I say, oh, I'll take notes this time, and Sophia says to me, your handwriting is awful, you aren't taking notes. Then you kind of get that camaraderie and that openness among the team, right? So it's a matter of how do you go through the team development. So here's another big principle I'll give you. I'm going to go high up again for a second. Coaching leadership style. So there are many styles of leading. There's directing, that's telling people what to do, authority, right? There's affiliative leadership, which means that you're going to be the kind of person who's going to get everybody together, right? That's your role. There's democratic leadership where you walk down, get out of your desk, walk down the hall, and you ask 3 people what they think about something, right? Visionary leadership, here's my vision for how I think it ought to go. There's innovative leadership where you're pretty much doing a lot to generate ideas, right? And so there's a lot of styles, and the point is that you should have a broad tool belt of available styles to you. You shouldn't, everybody has a preference, one that they'll lead with, but you should have a broad one. But the one I find myself coaching the most with people is coaching them how to be better leadership coaches. So it's how do you develop other people by using your coaching skills to bring that out. So for example, with the holacracy idea and the volunteer idea, the thing that occurs to me is, what do people already do well, and how do you shape that? So as a new team leader, when I go in and do retreat or team facilitation, I will often, my first question I ask a team is, what do you do well? And have the team develop the self-awareness around what they do well, right? Same thing, self-awareness as a team. And then if you were going to make changes to be more effective, what would you change? What would you modify? And so that then becomes the desired state versus the current state, and then the work becomes, how are we going to bridge that gap? So I never want to enter into a team environment and assume that they're starting at 0. They aren't. They're never starting at 0. They're starting at maybe not recognizing what they already do well and building on that. So that's how I would build the emotional intelligence of teams. Does that help? Yeah. I got 5 minutes. Say something? Anything?
I want to
Yeah?
ask another question. It's probably related to the previous one. How do you making leaders out of your team?
So say a little more about what would that look like? What's your vision for that?
Well, let's say I have a vision that one day I will not be a leader of this team, and I want to make leaders and to people to be proactive. So I want to understand how can I help them be a leader.
Yeah.
Be a leader.
That's beautiful. So first of all, go tell your team that. I mean, that's it. That's your vision, right? I want you guys to be autonomous and develop initiative where you're not relying on me. And how are we going to get there? So first of all, I would tell them that, and then I would say, do you think that's a reasonable vision to hold for everybody? And then, great. So how are we going to get there? I'm a big fan of flip chart paper and markers and writing on the wall. You guys do that? Or whiteboards? I'm a big fan. So I always do so here's the vision. Here's where we're at now. So what are actions and agreements we need to make as a team? And some of them will surprise you. Like, okay, we have to quit gossiping about each other. Right? Or we have to quit seeking permission and start begging forgiveness for decisions that we make. You never know. You never know what teams are going to say. But that's kind of what I would do with it. I mean, you just sort of answered your own question, from what I could tell. Yeah, nice going. No charge. So I love coaching the coach. So if I'm coaching you, I love that you are also simultaneously coaching somebody else. So you're practicing the skills that I'm using on you with somebody that you're developing. That's the best way to do it. So if you're, I don't know how you guys, I haven't been here long enough to know, but I teach a coaching and mentoring class, but they're related yet separate. So mentors are often people that focus on your career development, and they stay with you through the trajectory of a long-term relationship. Coaches, if they're doing coaching and development, they're with you for that moment in time where you're working on that development. So most people I coach, I mean, there are some exceptions, but like 18 months is probably how long I'll see somebody, sometimes less, sometimes more. I've been coaching a woman who has a wonderful small business. She has a goat farm, and she makes boutique goat cheeses. And I've coached with her 6 years, and she's been, talk about your entrepreneurial creative thing. So her thing is she's very creative, but the implementation kind of really drags her down. She wants somebody else to implement. So that's her core business, but she's tried goat milk paint and marketing that. She's done lawn and garden clothing and supplies, high-end stuff, you know, like really cool watering cans. She does, now she's kind of in the event business. She has a secret garden where they have weddings and things like that. So, you know, it's like over the 6-year time with her, and I've coached her how to be a consultant so she can go help other people who are trying to have a goat farm to make boutique cheeses. So it's like following interest is the magic bullet. Follow your interest so you stay engaged. And that's where she's just gone, and I've just followed her with that. So that's kind of the coaching piece, yeah. A minute? What happens at the end of 1 minute? Yeah, okay.
It's not a religion, the 40 minutes. I have a following question. What you're doing is very, very important, and sometimes is underestimated. And this normally is applicable into harmonized teams, either in companies or in communities that are having one common idea and direction, like the NGOs and volunteers and so on. But to which extent this is applicable, and what can be the tips and tricks for an open communities, because this more and more is our reality today. You have all those Facebook guys that are popping up and disappearing. You have an initiative that, for example, Joanne Bond is coming, and we are not here in our space with our friends, but we are on the square after big marketing, and this is a community that have a common idea. Most probably this example was not exactly the best one, the second one. My point is how we can apply, because that's the business of Move BG, for example. I'm asking you on purpose, how we can apply those techniques to an open communities, that through this we can influence back much bigger groups in the society to really harmonize towards good cause and impact.
Yeah.
If you have an answer on this.
Well, this is a huge question, but let me do my best. I have a couple ideas. One is, so it has to be clear what the vision of Move BG is, right? That has to be clear. The mission and the vision have to be clear, so when people tap into it, they know exactly what it stands for. They may even have to know exactly what you stand for as the organizational leader, right? The thing that you're always hoping to do, whether it's engagement in a 9-to-5 job that you do 40 hours a week, or if it's in running your own business as an entrepreneur, is that, or whether you're online, is that you're always appealing to somebody's values. And it's a very personal thing. If we went around this room and said, what do you value most? You would all have different answers. They might overlap, but your values are yours. And those values in turn become what motivates you to action. So to me, because of the nature of virtual space is so unknown about what really happens, right? You're just hoping for the hook of somebody identifying with your value because it resonates with them. That's really your best outcome. And I think that's how followership is an assumption you can potentially make about followership, is that, well, Joanne must believe in what we do because she just said she's going to follow us. And beyond that, it's much tougher. But I think it's also having clarity in your message. And that to me is whether you're in front of your team, whether you're in your business representing yourself, the brand of you representing yourself, or you're online. So that's kind of my high-level viewpoint on that. Is that helpful? Yeah? That's a nice answer. She says, yeah. Yeah. So I don't have the panacea, but I definitely go back to the bigger concepts. Yeah? Well, I guess we're out of time. Thank you. You were very nice to listen to me. So thanks for that. And I truly hope it was helpful. I hope I gave you a couple nuggets. So in adult learning, I always tell people, here's what I want you to do. I want you to, first of all, figure out if you got any validation about something you're doing from me or anybody else who said something. Keep doing that. That's what you want. Second thing is, did you pick up anything you can start doing? Because maybe you're not. So start doing that. Third thing, if you figured out you got a bad habit, stop it. That's adult learning. It's keep, start, stop. So hopefully you walk out with a kind of a nugget in one or all of those categories that gives you a place to go next.
Thank you very much, Joanne. I'm sure I can speak on behalf of everybody here in the room. You really stimulated these young leaders to think on driving even bigger causes and themes and achieve together with their team or their teams to be much bigger goals, self-identifying them as leaders with vision. And I'm sure that there are more insights that people want to share with you or with Larry and Maggie and between themselves, and this will happen on a glass of wine. We'll be happy to have you all on the first floor, close to the bar, and to have the second drink, because we had already one. And Joanne, thank you very much for being with us. Thank you.